Hilchos Lulav Perik Ches Halacha Beis. Esrog Shel Orlo, Esrog of Orlo Shel Truma Tmeyo, which cannot be benefited from Shel Tevel, or wasn't tithed yet, is possible. So let's see. Orlo is 3 years, the first 3 years from when you plant a tree. Your Orlo. It doesn't mean when they come out, it means from when you plant it. You can't benefit from it, you can eat it or benefit. Now, that's the Esrog of Orlo. And Truma Tmeyo means they set it aside for Truma and it became Tomei because it was first touched by water and then touched by Tomei, it was Tomei. Vishal Tevel, it didn't separate Trumas and Maitis, so you can't eat it. It's possible. This applies only to Esrog, which is a fruit. But the Lulav and myrtle twig and willow don't have this don't have any of these rules. Shalt Mai, that he bought the Esrog from an Amoretz, and who may not have taken off the tithe, the Maisa tithes, kosher, because the rule is this is only rabbinically forbidden. Most of the Amoratzim did tithe, and he'll have a rule of an oni. He can eat mai. Esrog shel truma tahira, esrog of truma tahira, shel Maisa sheni b'Yerushalayim, and of Maisa sheni in Yerushalayim. You should not take shami yachshiru letumo, lest he make it kosher letumo. Ve'im not al kosher, but if he did take it, it is kosher. The Magen Mishnah cites a Mishnah in Sukkah. It's agreement Beisham and Beis Hillel with Mai. A lot of like Beis Hillel, it's kosher. Esrog shel truma tmeya. Magen Mishnah cites a Mishnah 34b. Paskins, according to the opinion, he reasons he shouldn't take it because he will cause it to receive tumah. Shel Orlo, when it comes to Orlo, says Orlo is also no, so there's no right to eat it, and therefore it's not his, and it has to be his, and that's lacking. Now, Esrogim of Chutz La'aretz are kosher, even though we don't know if they're Orlo. Like in the Mishnah, Sofek Orlo in Eretz Yisrael is also, but outside of Eretz Yisrael, even in Syria, it's mutar. In Chutz La'aretz, you can even not only just buy it, you can even go down and cut it, but they shouldn't see him cutting it. Now, Chutz La'aretz, Vadai Orlo is also, and Sofek Orlo is mutar. And by other minim, they don't have Orlo because they're not fruits. In Peirush HaMeir, the Rambam explains the reason why Orlo is possible because it's not called a fruit. The Mishnah says Esrog shel Orlo is possible. If you have more questions, what's the reasoning? Have a disagreement. The one says because you can't eat it. Rashi explains Lochem means that you should be able to have it for anything that you want to use it for. One says because it doesn't have a din of his money. Rashi explains saying it's also has no value. It's not called lochem. An esrog of truma tmeya apostle. There are more questions. Certainly, one who says because you have no way to eat it, you can't fulfill lochem. But the one who says because it has no money, why shouldn't you take it? The Kohen can use it like to burn it under his food, and the Gemara is everyone agrees that you have to be able to eat it. The only question is whether it has to have a din of money as well. The difference is Ma'aseh Sheni Yerushalayim, according to HaMeir. According to HaMeir, it's not your money, even though you can eat it, and therefore you could not use it for an esrog. And the one who says it's enough to be able to eat it, you would fulfill your obligation according to Rameya. But the one who says it has to have money, according to Rameya, Ma'aseh Sheni is not money, but it belongs to Hashem, and therefore you would not fulfill your obligation of lochem. Toy's questions: why belulav and ashera and yadach? As they say, you don't fulfill your obligation because it's lacking in the measurements. Why do you say it doesn't have money? And he explains that according to the Mandiyama, the one who's the opinion that you don't have to have a value as long as it's therefore it would be called lochem, even though it doesn't have a din of money. Lulav is not eaten. It says lochem, it must mean that you have to have benefit. And shiur and yadachas, you can't have benefit. And you don't need to say the reason, because it's lacking a measurement. And the Tosfos answer that the Gemara says it's lacking a measurement even on the other days when there's no din of lochem. So they ask the question, esrog of elo, you have to burn it, and you don't need the reasoning, it doesn't have a heta achila, or it doesn't have a din of mammon. And the answer that they don't need that reason, and what they disagree is only if you have to have money in it, or it's enough that you can eat it for Ma'aser Sheni, according to Rabbi Meir. As we see, according to Tosfos, if it's not lochem, it's forbidden ba'anor, it's forbidden only in the first day. Like the fact that it doesn't have a measurement makes it nullified for the rest of the festival as well. With this we can understand Rabbi Manoach says that the Rambam says invalidates an esrog of olo because it's forbidden ba'anor, it's not lochem. And ba'olo, everyone agrees you don't fulfill your obligation because you cannot eat it, and it has no value of money. According to Tosfos, it only be forbidden the first day. Just the esrog, borrowed esrog, is supposed to only the first day, even though it's not lachem. Because it's not lachem, the rest of the festival you could use it. The Kappas Timorim questions: how can the Rambam invalidate an esrog of olo, like truma, only on the first day? In Halacha Tes, he says it's invalidated in the other days because it's forbidden to be eaten. And you can't say that it's forbidden because it has to be burnt and it's lacking in shiur, because the Rambam says tevel is also invalidated and that doesn't have to be burnt. Why should tevel not be usable in the rest of the festival, even though you can't eat it? And besides the Peirush HaMeir, the Rambam explains it's not considered a fruit. All on Trumat Meir need to be burnt, and they cannot be eaten. And he questions that at the beginning in the Peirush HaMeir he says it's because they have to be burnt, not because of eating. And he concludes that, and Rambam does, that then they can't be eaten. Why does he change it? And he answers that the Rambam is the opinion that you have to be able to have it eaten and have value. Does not learn from lochem, ela from pre-eitz hodo. And the isa achilo, the forbiddenness of eating, or not value, is not called a pre. And it's possible even on the other days of the Chag because of that, because esrog of tevel, since it cannot be eaten, it's not called a fruit. Machon Nesher learns differently in the Rambam that if there's no ability, you can't eat it, or it has no value, it's not called lachem. And the question comes up again, why, according to the Rambam, can't you use tevel the other 7 days? The Magen Avraham answers, the Beis HaLevi explains, according to the Rambam, esrog that's forbidden to be eaten is not lochem. And the psul of achila is considered it's not his, therefore it's possible the other days. And then the question comes up of Tosfos, what do you need to have the reason by lulav of it's lacking in shiur? The psul is because it's not his. And the Magen Avraham explains that the Rambam is of the opinion that only an esrog that is a food, you can learn from lochem that it has to be able to be eaten, because that's the concept of fruit is yours if you can eat it. Whereas by lulav, you can't say lulav. They say a different reason why you can't use it. It has nothing to do with eating it or lochem, because it's lacking in the measure. According to Magen Avraham, it's simple. According to the Rambam, the Issa of lochem passes all 7 days, even though lochem is only in the first day, because Chazal forbade an esrog. The whole obligation is to do it as a migdosh, and there's no heta achila, all the chag, it's a psul in the item itself, and therefore they forbade an esrog that you can't eat.
Is that clear?
We're going to the bottom of the page. Nimtzo. Thus we find that according to the Rambam, esrog of Orlo, Truma, Tmeyo, and Tevel is possible because it doesn't have you cannot eat it. According to Rabbi Manoach, Ramogan Avram, it's not lochem. It's not considered yours. According to Tosus, it's possible only the first day. According to the Rambam, it's possible all of the days of Sukkot. The Kapos Tmorim is of the opinion that according to the Rambam, it has to be able to be eaten or money. It says pre. If you can't eat it and it has no value of money, it's not called a pre, therefore it's possible in the other days as well. Rabbeinu Manoach questions, D'mai is kosher because he can make himself an oni by making all of his assets not his, and therefore he'd be able to eat D'mai. He should say he can make the esrog hefker, and it won't have an obligation of Maisa, and therefore he won't have a problem. And the answer is that Hefker is poiter in Maisa only before the obligation came upon it. Once the Amoritz tithes the Truma Gedolah, there's an obligation of Maisa. Ezrik shall Truma Tahira v'shal Maisa Sheni v'Yerushalayim le'yitoel. Truma Tahira and Maisa Sheni you shouldn't take because maybe it will cause it to become Tomei. If he took it, it's kosher. Ameinu Manoach cites from Perek Zayin that a woman can receive from her husband, from her son, or from her husband, the lulav to put back in the water on Shabbos. Thus we see that there's water on the lulav, and if we'll take the esrog of Truma Tahira and it'll touch the water, it'll cause it to be susceptible to be Tomei, and you can't cause Truma to become Tomei, or to Maisa Sheni, because it says Mishmeres Tumoisei. There's an obligation to watch it, that it should not become Tomei. From here, Kapos Tmorim proves that one has to bring the lulav close to the esrog, because otherwise you can keep it separately, it won't become wet. The Beis Yosef says that the Rekanti dreamt that he was writing the Shem Hashem in the first three letters, and the Hey, the last one, he separated distant from the first three, and he explained that the four minim, he explained this dream as meaning the four minim, the four species, three of them have to be together, and the esrog is the last hay, and you do have to put it to the lulav, and he was not putting it to the lulav, and therefore they showed him in Hashemayim that he should. Now if he took it, it's kosher. Rabbeinu Manoach adds, not only a kohen is yotzer, because it's money, even in Yisrael, they can't eat truma, fulfills his obligation, because he can give it to his grandson, who's a kohen. If his daughter married a kohen, it's called lochem. But from the Rambam writes that you fulfill your obligation with Zmai because of what you yourself can cause to give up your assets, doesn't prove that by truma the same thing should apply, because it has to be a dover that he himself can use, and he would not permit his grandson's esrog to be used if it's from truma. Rabbi Manoach questions, why can't the Yisrael fulfill his obligation be truma? Because he can go ahead and say, I changed my mind, it's not truma anymore, and it'll be tevel. The answer is, you only say at the chumrah that to nullify something that somebody did, but not to be lenient. He says that you fulfill with matzahs ma'aseh sheni b'Yerushalayim the obligation of the mitzvah. As the Mishnah cites, that Rabbi Menayach questions halachos like Ameya, that ma'aseh sheni is not your money, and it's not called yours, and therefore by matzahs it has to be your matzah. He explains that the Rambam is of the opinion that it should be, as long as you can eat it, it's called lachem, even though you don't own it. It doesn't have to be his money, and therefore by matzah you do fulfill your obligation. Whereas with esrog it has a different obligation.